Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Carrier, and you may be familiar with who I am. And today, I have a very special guest with me for my third in my series of Rockstar entrepreneur interviews. But what's really special is that my guest is my first female rockstar entrepreneur. Yay! So this lovely woman is Miss Patti Fletcher, Dr. Patti Fletcher. And forgive me for 1 second here because we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I want to make sure that this live video gets into the classroom before I really get into this. But I want to say that my when I was thinking about these rockstar interviews, rockstar entrepreneur interviews, I had a few people in mind that I knew without a doubt I had to bring in. And one of the people who actually inspired me doing this is this lady who's sitting right next to me. So Patti, I met Patti about 6 months ago. Something is up. Oh, hi guys. All right, wonderful. Thank you. I see that we have some followers. I'm getting reports from my assistant that she can't get into Facebook, and now I can't get into Facebook on my phone. So we just need to troubleshoot this really quickly. I see, hey Alex, how are you? I see that we have some viewers, so I'm going to ask those of you who are here to please share, because I'm not sure that my assistant is actually able to get in to Facebook, and my Facebook is showing that it's completely blank. So, and she's trying to get into my Facebook. So Alex, I'm going to ask you right now, would you please share this in the classroom? And Alex, would you invite Rayhan to this, and also invite Carla? And please send Carla a message and ask Carla to post this on Rayhan's public page. Because we need this to be streaming there as well. Something's wrong with my my Facebook. Why is that? But you guys are obviously seeing me, which is good news. So I'm just going to, oh, excuse me 1 second, guys. This is technical problems. Hold on. Hey. Yeah, I can't get in there either. So, all right. We're just going to go ahead and broadcast, and whoever can share this, who's watching, that'll be it. Maybe Cassandra, you can just log in as yourself. I don't know. You're smart. You'll figure this out. Okay. Okay. All right, hon. I'll call you after the show. Thanks. Sometimes you just have technical difficulties. It just happens. So I'm very, very excited because, as I was saying, Patti is actually one of the people who inspired this from the beginning, because when I met Patti, about 6 months ago. Is that right, Patti?
I think so,
yeah. Yeah. I met her at this gathering. We have this powerful female tribe in Boston where Patti and I both live. And she blew me away. Everything she knew, her confidence. She came live on video, and we actually had 14,000 viewers from around the world while that was happening, which I thank you all for being here. At this point, we can only get viewers who follow me, and there are like a dozen other pages that we're going to be streaming this on as well. So thank you, and please everybody share it. And Alex, can you just give me a confirmation in the comments that you're sharing this, and also inviting Rayhan to share this, since I can't get into my Facebook. So Miss Patti Fletcher, oh my God, I'm sorry, Dr. Patti Fletcher is such an incredible and powerful female business leader and entrepreneur and innovator and disruptor. And I am so excited to have her on this show today and to interview her and let you all know her, and for me to get to know her better as well. So let me read you a short bio about Patti. Dr. Patti Fletcher is the author of the forthcoming book, Disruptors: Success Strategies for Women Who Break the Mold, which is coming out in January 2018, right around the corner. Dr. Fletcher is a seasoned tech executive, award-winning marketing influencer, board member, angel investor, and speaker. She writes for entrepreneur.com, Inc., The Guardian, The Digital List, and she's contributed to or been featured in Time Magazine, Forbes, Fortune, Newsweek, The Muse, The Huffington Post. There's really nothing she hasn't done, clearly. And Patti advises corporate executives and board members from lean startups to Fortune 500. She is currently executive in residence at Babson College in the Win Lab. And she lives here in Boston. That is how I met Patti. So Patti, thank you so much for being here. And I feel like I could say a lot of things about you. You've just inspired so much. And I know that you work globally and our audience is very global. My virtual classroom is very global. So I'm honored to have you here. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
That's wonderful to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start with this, Patti. I like asking people where they were, what they were doing, who they were with when that seed was planted that set you on the path to do what you do today.
Yeah, they're my tipping point.
Yes.
I grew up in a very conservative family. I'm going to read that. Let's see if I can switch here because I won't be able to concentrate otherwise. I might just put in a headset. One sec.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, so I grew up in a very conservative family. Hi, South Africa. Pakistan's in the house. Florida. Oh, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have to jump on an airplane to go global, apparently. I wish somebody told me that. So I grew up in a very conservative family. I'm the youngest of three girls. My mother is a first generation Armenian American. My dad, very tall, white, kind of meat and potatoes kind of guy. And growing up, the word feminist was quite negative. I was told and educated to believe that feminism was an or kind of word. You were either for women or against them. And if you were for women, that meant that you were against men. And that never really sat right with me because, you know, from where I stood, there were both men and women. But what I came to find out, I went back for my PhD when I was in my 30s. I had a really great career in tech and in large scale enterprise tech. And I had started wanting to learn more about my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, for a number of reasons. She was orphaned in the Armenian genocide and really knew her, but didn't know her. And after she passed, got more and more interested. So that's why I went back for my PhD, not from a career perspective, but because I wanted to learn to research like a scholar, because it was absolutely required. And so as I was learning how to research like a scholar, I was learning about her life and ended up taking this course, this feminist leadership theory course, which was based on the works of Carol Gilligan. And if you don't know who Carol Gilligan is, please start knowing who Carol Gilligan is. She provided the seminal research for how women differ from men when it comes to value-based decision making. This is critical then, it's critical today, it's going to be critical tomorrow, and we can talk more about that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm sitting in here and I'm taking this class, which I have to admit, I was like rolling my eyes at taking, are you kidding me? But there I was going, on the first day, mind you, going, oh my goodness, I think I'm a feminist and nobody told me, because feminism is about equity and equality for everyone. It's not that I have more than you, it's I have equal to you, right? So super, super important. And I was already about halfway down my dissertation proposal, which takes quite a while to get there. You do a lot of research and all that stuff, right? And I was focusing on a very technical topic. And after that class, after realizing, oh my gosh, here I was focusing on things like being the only American in the room, being the youngest in the room, being the only one who couldn't code, being the only one who wasn't born to wealthy parents, being right, all of those things. What I never realized is I was the only woman in the room. I never thought about it because that was my normal. Why would I think about that? And so it became this kind of like slow churn. I ended up studying women who hold board of director positions in publicly held life sciences and technology businesses. There were very few of them then. There are very few of them now. And what I came to realize was here were these women who were a few generations older than me, and they were paving these paths, and they were doing things on their own terms. They never lost who they were. They had gotten to a place where so few people, let alone women, go. And that everything that made up who they were was at odds with what I was learning about my grandmother, who truly had no equity, no voice in her own life. She never did. And she died without that, and thought, okay, so here I am, this white woman born in 1969 America, and whereas my grandmother really didn't speak very much, and if she did, it was never about herself, I could not seem to keep my mouth shut. It's gotten me into a lot of trouble. And I've always been a fighter against inequity. Again, I didn't call it feminism before, but that's really where the tipping point came, where I realized that although the women who are in the boardroom are all set, they don't need my help. There are the 99% of us who need to be shown the way or given some education or something, right, where I can enable them and help them. And one of the things that was so important about those women is that they had earned a platform and they used it for the greater good. And that's really what I've been doing. And Amy, that's what you do, right? You're building this platform. You become the place where the conversation happens. And that's exciting. It doesn't mean I have to be in every conversation, but it does mean that I'm orchestrating the conversation and that people can come together on that and, quite frankly, make it their own. So that was my tipping point.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, I love that your grandmother is a part of that story for you.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah. And then it became not just about her, but I had found out all of these things about her family, her sisters, her mother. And it was, once I learned it, I couldn't unlearn it. Yeah. And I realized, holy moly, that's my family history. That's who I am. Yeah. And I have a responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
As women, we absolutely do.
We do, but it's come at a cost. And that cost is I don't have a lot of time for anything. And I think that's really important to talk about, right? That it's not all sunshine and fairy tales. This is a very hard life. When you put yourself out there, people are going to point arrows at you and shoot them. And that happens, right? And it's okay as long as you maintain focus and remember who it is you're doing the work for. The other piece is I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. My husband was a stay-at-home dad for the majority of my career. And now that our girls are a little bit older, he just went back to work this summer, which has been an adjustment for us all. But I clearly remember my youngest, who was born with like a 40-year-old sense of humor, when I was leaving one day to go somewhere over on the other side of the ocean to go talk about women in technology, and her screaming after me how she doesn't care about women in technology. Why did I have to leave again? Oh yeah. And I'm like, wow. That was awesome. She was like, not even 2. And I was like, you don't have to care because I do. It was just, right. So it's really important to tell the truth. Yeah. It is not easy being an entrepreneur. It is not easy being a game changer, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't change it for anything. Absolutely not.
That I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And thank you for doing that, because you are rising up as this voice and this leader for all of our sisters around the globe and saying, you can do this.
Yes.
If I can disrupt, if I can, be a woman in a male dominated world, you can do it too. And that's what everybody needs. That's what our children need, our students and our sisters.
I truly believe anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Anybody. I did not come from a connected family. I do not have a wealthy family. None of those things. And I'm still growing, right? I'm still figuring stuff out. I learn new things every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have the capability to live the life that we believe we should live. I truly believe that.
So on that note, let me ask you my next question, which is really what 3 actionable steps can our audience take to, and think of this as like a cheat sheet of sorts, that they can implement right now in their lives, either their personal lives or their professional lives, to empower more women to become entrepreneurs? Like 3 things.
Yeah. So the first thing, and take this with the knowledge that I'm a writer. And when you're a writer, words matter.
Yeah.
When you're a leader, words matter. When you are on a stage trying to invoke change, words matter.
Yeah.
So the first thing is change the word empower. Your job is not to empower me, and my job is not to empower you. Empower means that I own your power, or if you're trying to empower me, you own mine. I'm not giving you my power, it's mine. So what I do need is to enable. So step number 1, yes, women don't need to be empowered. That is an antiquated viewpoint.
Okay.
And I decided not to tell you that before because I wanted to have this conversation, and it's one I have on a daily basis. So your job is not to give someone power because you can therefore take it away. That's not your job on this earth. But if you do want to enable women, that is your job. The world right now, the systems that are in place for the most part are based on very antiquated context, right? A context that no longer represents who's in the workforce and how we work. So rule number 1, change your tone, change your language, change your definition of the role that you play in the lives of women who want to succeed despite the system being set up against them. Number 2, be very, very clear on the change you want to create in this world. What do you want to enable women to do? And then number 3, dissect what it is that you uniquely bring to the table to enable them. Here's where I see most people fall down is this number 3. There is a lot of change that needs to happen in order for us to be able to, maximize and harness our own personal power and enable others to do the same thing. The challenge, especially with women, is that we think we have to boil the ocean. We think that we need to be able to provide all the answers and do all the work. What I have found out working with women, these women who we see on TV and we see in the newspapers and they're, in all the right positions and in public board seats, is that they understand they bring something very specific to the table. Now, their job may be to run the whole thing, but that means understanding what they know and what they don't know and inviting folks who fill gaps, either filling gaps in social relationships that are required in order to help achieve the vision, or perhaps it's gaps in knowledge. But be very, very clear on what you bring and where you have opportunities to invite others to the table.
I love it. I love it. I heard 100 things in your 3 points. So I heard enable, I heard know the gap you fill, and then what was the third thing?
Know the vision. What is it? Yeah, where are you headed? If you're starting here today, right, because being a disruptor, it's all about transformation. And that really is the core of everything I do, transformational leadership. So that requires that you have a vision. That vision you're going to tweak over time as more people get involved, you gain more knowledge. But ultimately, think about the vision as what is the opposite of the status quo that you believe no longer serves the world that it lives in. And then what is the vision? What must be true in order for that to be resolved and for a new world order to come in, and get very, very clear on that. That determines everything.
I love that. And I also love and appreciate that you said that the vision changes. Like your vision, but also be flexible and know that everything's changing so rapidly that you have to change also.
Absolutely. You have to adapt. Yep. You stay yourself, but you adapt and you're open. And transformational leaders, very rarely are they executing on a vision that's solely their own. Transformational leaders know and understand that nobody gets to the finish line alone.
Mhm.
right? And you need others, you need stakeholders, you need customers, employees, people who support you and enable you in other ways.
Right.
And so your job is to bring them into the mix. So they're helping you carry this ball forward toward the vision. They
Mhm.
can't help but put their footprint or handprint on it as well.
That's
And
right.
so, right? So what I don't ever deviate from are my core values or perhaps the impact. What I do evolve is what that looks like in the journey to get there. It's very, very important to be open to that.
You're so right. And, I'm sure that there are a million lessons that you've learned through your journey. I just got a message that says we're off the air.
Yeah.
Please leave a comment if you see that we're still here. And by the way, you're going to have the opportunity to ask Patti questions for the last 15 minutes of the show. So please stay with us. Looks like our numbers are still up, but if you can just leave a comment and let us know that we're here, that you're here, or that we're here.
I can see on my phone. So I'm not sure.
You
Like
can't see it on the
I
phone?
can see it. No, I can see us.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
So we're still here. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, all right, now I suddenly see us on the phone too, and say, look, this is being adaptive constantly, right? So I have there's a third person who's managing all of this, and sometimes things just don't work the way you want, and that's technology.
And that's okay. That's life.
Okay, right, exactly. So I actually want to ask you this one question. What is the greatest lesson that you think you've learned being a female disruptor in a very, very male dominated sector, or just a male dominated world, the business world, right?
Yeah. There are so many. I can't choose one. So let me kind of just give it a go here, because I think some of the others will come out in the other questions that we go through. And this is not going to be a popular one, so I'm just going to say it for the heck of it. Your ego is not your amigo. That's really the number one lesson. Yes.
I love that.
Yes, that's the number one lesson. And shout out to Heather Bogini, my partner in crime for much of the work that I do, who helped to come out with that. So, look, this is hard work. It gets personal very, very quickly.
Uh-huh.
And you can't fight back personally, because as a woman, that never reflects well on you. It's not right. It's not fair. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have to choose the battles that we fight. At the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter if I am right or I am wrong. What does matter is that the impact of the change that I am out here trying to create happens. That means it's not about me. Right. So Amy, when you were talking about, all the wonderful things about Dr. Patti Fletcher and all that kind of stuff, I separate that, right? Because I feel very uncomfortable. This is not about me. Mm-hmm. This is about creating the change. This is about the fact that it is going to take 170 years to have gender parity in the workplace. 170 years. If we accelerate growth change, we may get to pay parity by 2085, although I'm starting to doubt that even more. How could this work be about me? How could it be about my ego? Right. I'm not going to move the needle otherwise. So that's number one. And you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, every time you get some kind of a ding from a guy, every time you get turned down, and you will have a lot of doors closed on you if you are working in a male-dominated world, not because they're bad guys waking up every morning and saying, who can I oppress today, right? That very rarely happens. Just like I don't wake up every morning wondering who's going to oppress me for the day, right? I don't do that. That's not helpful. If I allowed my personal feelings of self-importance to get in the way, I couldn't do the work, and also my life would be purely miserable. Doesn't mean I don't have an ego. I got a pretty healthy one. But you do have to keep it in check, because my ego is my business, not someone else's burden to carry.
That's right. And I think that's such a valuable, I love the line, your ego is not your amigo, because it lends some kind of levity and humor to a message that's actually saying, look, so many of the problems that exist in the world, or even the problems that we create in our lives, come from this place of ego. Mm-hmm. So, and that's like 100 more topics, and it's a million books.
Yeah.
doing your personal work to understand that if you really feel like you are here to be a disruptor, an innovator, it's not about your ego.
Yeah.
So I think that is, I mean, I'm leaving that on screen even as we move into the next question, because I want everybody to really get that message.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard, by the way. It's really hard. Yeah, it is funny, and we do have to invoke humor. And if I'm not having fun and laughing, I'm usually not going to want to stick around. But this one, it's just critical, and I might feel it's critical because my ego is the problem. But it really, truly is important. You have to rise above so very often, and trust me, when you work in a male-dominated world, there's plenty of testosterone infused ego going around. And yes, some of my best friends, pretty much all of my advocates have been male, simply because of the world that I live in. So this is not a blanket statement, but what I do know is in the tech world, that kind of great man theory, think of it, right? We think of Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and, right, I could go on and on and on, Jack Welch, right outside of tech. That great man theory is still very much embedded in us. Not one of them got to the finish line alone, and they would not have made it to the finish line if people who were able to check their ego at the door did not surround them and keep focus in on the impact that they were trying to drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing there's so many comments here. I'm going to try and make sure that we get a full 15 minutes for the questions, but I'm just seeing this message from Carla, who obviously is a woman, and she's saying that what you're saying, Patti, is so important. And, you know, so you are delivering this message to so many men and women. In fact, I think it probably is, our audience is mostly men at this point.
Yep.
And no one's bashing men. We're simply educating.
Yeah.
And we're trying to bring that balance that you said it's going to take how many years?
170 years. So our great, 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 great grandchildren may see it before they die. It's awful. Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
But you know what? Those great, 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 great grandchildren will be able to talk about the incredible, powerful great 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 grandmothers they had.
Yeah. But there's my ego, right? Yeah, that's right. So yeah, no, it's really exciting. But you bring up something else that's super important, and that's about the men. I was at Northeastern University last week, and was on stage talking with Pat Milligan, who heads up the Women Thrive research at Mercer. She also heads this topic up at the World Economic Forum. She's a very dear friend. And she's actually featured it in the book that I have coming out in January. And so there we were, and we're on stage, and we're talking to all of these undergrads, 5-year kind of degree program students. I don't know if there were any master's degree folks in there. But, you know, I'm so used to going to these events and only seeing women and maybe 1 or 2 men in the room. And we were talking about gender equity. And I look out at this very large auditorium, sold out. People had to bring in chairs from other rooms. And more than half of the folks there were men. And Troon, the young lady who put this whole thing together, I talked to her about it. I'm going to have her on my show, An Entrepreneur, in the next few months. And I was like, how did you do that? Right? I've been on this topic for a very long time. I personally have been very unsuccessful in having those kinds of numbers, although I truly believe that gender equity and women in entrepreneurship and whatever, that's a human topic, right? That's not a woman's topic. How did you do it? And she was so simple about it. She said, well, I went to the different fraternity houses. I walked right in and said, this is what we're talking about. You may feel uncomfortable, young male pair, but I have to tell you, I need you at the table. You belong at the table. How can I welcome you to the table? So for the gentlemen who have joined this discussion, I'm here to say thank you. We need you at the table. We welcome you at the table, and we want to work together so that we all win. Because right now, when only part of the population is trying to innovate, nobody wins.
That's right. So you actually, you popped right ahead and started answering my next question, which is, what message do you have? It's a 2-part question. What message do you have for our sisters who are watching today or who watch afterwards? And what message do you have for our brothers, the men who love and support or employ or want to be enabling
Yeah.
to the women?
Yeah. So the first thing, and I'm going to get pretty practical for the women. So if you are going to be an entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur is not a job and it's not a career track, it is a state of mind. It's somebody who sees a gap, a problem, and can't not pay attention to it and try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an entrepreneur if you work at a mom and pop shop. You can be an entrepreneur at a large corporation, or of course you can have your own startup. What's super important for anybody, not just women, but anybody, but especially for women, is that when you are bringing change to the world, again, it's not something you do alone. You have to have others with you, people who provide credibility in the areas you don't have, people who have connections you don't have, right? Because when you're creating change, essentially what you're doing is you're asking people to change their culture, what they believe, how they spend their day, their energy, their money, all that kind of stuff. And you can't do that based on what you know. And you can't create that kind of change based on who you know. You can only create that kind of change based on who knows you. So think about that. So what does that mean? That means, and I always remind people of this, especially women, there's this saying that's been around for a long time, and I'm sure you've heard it, so go ahead and roll your eyes as I say it, but it's especially true still today, which is, if a woman doesn't know something, she takes the class. If a man doesn't know something, he takes the job. What's the difference? We women place so much value on having expertise because we have to be perfect out in the world, right? Any kind of ding against us, we know that. We've been raised with that. No matter where I've been around the world, that seems to be a common value. So we spend all of this time in our expertise, building our expertise or our knowledge base, and our male peers are learning on the job. So what does that mean? They're getting exposure to new experiences and to people. People are getting to know who they are, how they work, the kind of impact they have. And then what happens? Those people turn into advocates and champions when those men are not in the room.
Right.
Please invest your time, ladies, in getting to know people. Now, I know it's called networking. Women don't network. One of the things that we learned from Carol Gilligan, who I mentioned, right, the one of the founders of feminist leadership theory, is that women don't network. Women are relational in their decision making, meaning if I'm going to go do something, I tend to think about the impact it's going to have on the most important stakeholders, right? The people who have a stake in the decision I'm making. Maybe it goes against, some kind of change they're having, or it's going to disrupt their lives. We're relational. We create relationships. Right. Go out there and don't worry about networking. That works for some folks. Go for it, right? But for yourself, enable people to get to know who you are. Do a network map based on where you are today, where you want to be tomorrow, and who can help you get there. These should be a mix of people you do know and people you don't know. And don't worry about having specific names. Come up with personas. Reach out to the people you do know and say, hey, this is the direction I'm heading. Do you have some ideas? Who else might I be able to talk to? And just start creating those relationships. Trust me, you'll learn what you need to learn along the way for expertise. But it's really in creating those relationships, because then the growth becomes exponential, because it's truly out of your hands by then, versus you in a classroom, or you just focusing on a job, or you just focusing on the people that you know. That's not growth, and it doesn't enable entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So the message is, women, you need to be known. You are relational by nature. And men, we need you at the table.
Yeah, we do. And we welcome you at the table. And for so long, when I was starting in on this topic, and really, quite frankly, until like yesterday, so that means it's going to happen tomorrow. A lot of the times when there is a change afoot, you have to want the change. It has to have some personal value to you. If you've been working in a system where you've been successful, you don't really have a catalyst for change. When men start to get involved in the conversation is when they start to have daughters, and they realize that their sons will have better opportunities that their daughters will never have. It's not because they have moms. It's not because they have sisters, right? It's not because they're employing women. It's not because of their grandmother. It's because of their daughters. Yes. And yeah, and while frustrating gets them in, your foot in the table and foot in the door. If you are a man joining this conversation today, it's because you care about this topic, because you understand that you can't move forward without the women who, quite frankly, are probably your customers, right? They're influential. In most Western economies, women hold 80 to 90% of influence or direct decision making on consumer products. We have a lot of power. We're not in power. And so when a guy joins the conversation, there are a few things we need from you. One, listen. Understand where our roadblocks are. Help us understand what our blind spots are, because we don't see things the way that you do because we haven't had your experience. And then the second is, don't just talk to us about it. What we need from men is to talk to other men and invite them to the table. We can't create a world where all the available talent is harnessed, where we can have all the best innovations, if we don't have men at the table. And men will listen to other men just like women listen to other women, right? So we really, really need that very, very much.
Yeah. So Patti, thank you. I already know that I'm going to go back and watch this in replay and take notes, because you've offered so much valuable advice, and I'm really looking forward to our Q&A session.
Me too.
Just thank you to everybody who's leaving comments here, and please get your questions ready, because in about 5 to 8 minutes, we're going to switch to questions, and you'll just want to post it at the top so that I can see it. So Patti, you've pretty much been doing this is amazing, because you're answering my questions before I even ask them. That's just how amazing you are. And I knew that this would be the case. So you're kind of already outlining the pieces of the puzzle that need to be brought together. The role that the men need to play, the role that the women need to play for themselves, to enable themselves to be seen more and to be more at the table themselves. So can you kind of think of, let's call it a recipe for success that you can describe for women who are thinking of becoming entrepreneurs? And they're actually, Fauzia Zafran, if you're there, this show is for you. There are many women out there who have expressed either a need to get involved and build something, or a desire to create, find solutions to problems. And also, women are very interested in teaching children entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So
we need that.
Yes, we're seeing that in the women. I've seen that in my classroom, certainly. So what recipe for success can you give to our sisters today?
So the real truth is there isn't a recipe for success, right? Because it's when you are entrepreneuring, when you are disrupting someone's status quo, your contexts are going to constantly change. We live in what's called a complex adaptive system, meaning that you and I have this conversation, and some folks, let's say Jenna Best, who's watching right now. Hi, Jenna. And asked a really good question, and you will get the answer to that, Jenna. But let's say Jenna learned something today, perhaps some of the research sources that I share, and then she goes, and I apologize, my dog is scratching up my carpet under my feet right now, so you might hear that. But anyway, so Jenna goes and changes her mind about something, which then changes a conversation or changes an approach. Let's say Jenna's a startup entrepreneur, and Jenna, thank you for being the person to lend me the name today. And then that changes with the people around her, right? And then their points of view change, and the actions that they take change, and so on and so on and so on. So your system's constantly adapting. So entrepreneurship's not a TED Talk you can watch. There is no one route to success. Number two is that there's no end game in success. Heather Bogini, my co-founder, and I were in DC a few weeks ago. I had some meetings down there and was hosting actually action at the point of government policy and commercial practice. It was a great session, and spoke with some policymakers down there around the state of gender equity. And we had our youngest children with us, and hers and mine. And we're taking a tour of the Capitol. And our tour guide had said to us in Capitol Hill, here are all these people, here's all the work that they do. And when you're a politician, you realize that your work is never done. And that's exactly what entrepreneurship is. There is no finish line. You have incremental sprints. So as a female entrepreneur, get very, very clear. What are those things that must be true in sequential order, and be willing to adapt your approach, not change who you are, because you are good enough. Trust me, you are good enough to create the change that you want to see in the world. It's how do we get there without this whole obsession around perfection, which women tend to have. Remember, we want to take the class. So focus in on what are those not success measures, but progress measures. What must be true. So just like I go, ooh, when I hear the word empower, I'm like, when I hear the word success, right? Because this is about impact and progress. Get very, very clear on that, which then is the third piece of this, and that is data. People will argue with you when you are a woman. Women will argue with you. Men will argue with you. They're going to want to still believe that you are being emotional. When you have data based on customer interactions, data based on, impact from an economist perspective. Always try to follow the money when you are trying to create change or entrepreneur change. Have the data available that helps you paint the current state story. What is the problem and who should care? And then the final piece is you're working backwards from creating a sense of urgency. You may think that there is a problem. I may think there's a problem, but I might not think it's as important and urgent as you believe it is. So really focus in on that. What is the data that can help you paint the picture of we have to change this? And by the way, I mean you and I, right? And making sure that you are engaging people. Being an entrepreneur is not about being the lone wolf. Do not believe when people tell you that. Do not see that. You need help from everyone around you. Make it based on fact. Leverage and trust yourself that you're going to make the best decision you can with the data that you have, and focus in on creating those engaging relationships where you are not alone as you progress towards your next goals along the way. Remembering, I want you to also do some self-reflection. What worked, what didn't, how does the spaghetti stick to the wall, and whatever doesn't, what do I tweak moving forward?
Great. I love these 2 points that I put up on screen. The first thing you said is get data. Data backs up your claim. And you're not just being an emotional woman. I think that's a very, very important message to drive home. So I'm putting that on the screen. And also, don't be a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Nobody can build anything alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do have to say, right, so I, again, grew up in enterprise tech, and there was this big fascination with big data a few years ago, and certainly it's still here, especially as now we're transitioning to machine learning, and we still seem to be live. But anyway, Carolyn said she wants to step. So as we are going to machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's all about data. And it's so interesting because you have all these technologists, sitting in a lab somewhere. We're so brilliant. Data, big data. And these women who I've been speaking with for well over 2 decades, they've always used data. Why? Because they're entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs solve problems. Their problem was credibility, despite all their degrees, despite their years of experience, despite their true successes and impacts. So they've had to use data by necessity, but we still do today, and we probably should want to, right? Because that way we know we're focused in on the right thing, and we can measure where we're making impact and where we're not, and therefore be able to change it.
Wonderful. So we've got just...
Actually, sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The last piece of advice for women, and this is super, 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 super critical, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Part of your job, if you are a leader of any kind, or really just even a human being, is to remember that you need to train people on how to treat you. If someone is not treating you well, if they're not listening to you, if they're not executing or holding their promises, and if you let that go, you're training them to treat you in a way that's not going to enable you to create the innovation you want to see. Really focus in on that, right? As you're thinking about, what is my entrepreneur leadership model? What does that look like? How does it manifest? And what must be true in the relationships that I create and cultivate?
Yeah. We teach people how to treat us.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So because I want to get to a few questions, I'm going to wrap my final questions all into one. I want you to talk about your book. I want you to plug your book, Disruptors, and also just deliver for us. What is your final word? Is there a call to action that you have for our audience today?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for asking about my book. I'm so excited. It's called Disruptors: Success Strategies from Women Who Break the Mold. The short story is it's the anti-lean in. I personally had a challenge with lean in. I can't stand it. And the reason is, my big takeaway from all the work I've done all over these years is men and women don't need to be fixed. We're just fine, thank you very much. It's the system that's the problem. I don't believe women or anyone else who does not feel authentic in their way to act like that stereotypical great man. We don't have to learn how to network like men or negotiate like men. I can't stand it. We have invested in the wrong ideas and in the wrong programs, and that's why the needle hasn't moved, right? So that's super important. This book is the 99% of us who know that if we leaned in anymore, our faces would hit the ground. So what we need to learn from them, right? It's not a TED Talk. This is about women who have achieved success despite the conscious and unconscious barriers that are in place. So the book really breaks down and demystifies what are those invisible barriers that are standing in our way as women to create the success, to create the impact, to create the innovation that the world has yet to see and must see. And then we share that. Not only do we have the academic research, right, and all that kind of stuff, we then share and what did they do about it? Entrepreneurs do not need to be inspired. It's a little nice to get maybe 5% inspiration, just enough for a stick. What we all want is to be enabled, right? We need pragmatic advice. What the heck do I do when I close the book and I have to go live my life, or when I'm done with this class and I have to go back to the office? And so that's what the book does. It gives you the information, insight to understand what the barriers are that you're facing, and then some examples of women who haven't lost themselves. And in fact, they've paved their own path or leveraged the path that others have paved before them. It is such a good and easy read. There are women in there who are, Lisa Ling wrote the foreword. She is, of course, an incredible journalist from CNN. We have incredible stories in there. Pat Milligan, my friend Brenda Reed from SAP, who heads up D&I product investment, and so on. There are so many different awesome folks in there. Sally Krawcheff, Pamela Reichman. So people like you and I, and people that may be a few years ahead of where we are in terms of success. You can find this book. You can find the landing page on my website, which is drpattifletcher.com. That's Dr. Patti with an I, Fletcher.com. You'll see a box that says Disruptors, or if you go up to the top right-hand side, you'll see the navigation menu with the word Disruptors. Go check it out. If you pre-order the book, you will get a free giveaway, and there are instructions there on how to get it. And that free giveaway is a cheat sheet on how to disrupt yourself. Because the truth is, if you want to create disruption as an entrepreneur, guess what? The person in the mirror is usually the one that needs the biggest amount of disruption. I disrupt myself every day. I've gotten very comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is what an entrepreneur does for a living, right? We take pride in that. So take a look.
Yeah, I love it. All right, everybody, Patti's website is on the screen right now, and you all need to go visit her website and get the book. I'm excited to get the book, and I'm also excited because I can actually hang out with this woman on a regular basis. Neither of us could get together Friday night, and all of our powerful women get together, but I'm excited. And Patti, thank you for writing this book. I love it already because it's practical. It tells you how to just hit the ground and do it.
Yes.
And that is important to me.
Yeah. Awesome.
get stuff done. That is the most important thing. We can all talk about it. We can all be theorists, but the time for that is over.
Yes.
The world needs action. So
Yes.
thank you for taking that action and for writing Disruptors. And I would love to have you actually back for another show. We've jam-packed a lot into this show. But there's a lot of wisdom that you have, and you yourself are incredibly inspirational. So I'm going to talk with you, and I'm going to hopefully recruit you to enable. I'm going to enable you to enable women all over the world and men all over the world to start doing this work. So thank you. I'm just going to say a quick thank you right now on behalf of all of the students, the 4,300 students in my classroom right now. It's growing every day. My team, myself, every woman on the planet. Thank you so much for being here. And it's an honor for me, really, just to know you. I mean, I was blown away when I met you, so I'm excited to have you on here today. And thank you, Alex. Put your website in the comments. So,
sorry, Alex. Sorry, I don't know if you need to do the www. You might want to add that in. But Alex, thank you. It's awesome.
Alex rocks. He's one of the founding team mentor teachers in Amy Carrier's classroom. He is
awesome.
He teaches about digital currency. It's great.
Oh my God! I need to learn about digital currency.
He teaches a phenomenal class. He has such a huge following on Sundays. I'll get you the information.
Awesome. Hook me up. See, it's all about who knows you. Yes.
Exactly. And Alex and I are actually teaching lessons on building your network and why and how and all of that. Awesome. So we have a question here I'm going to put on screen from Deborah Rupert. She says, how to enable women who have lost hope in their own leadership abilities. What brings self-confidence back? Wow.
Deborah, I love this question because I got to tell you, I coach a lot, and this is something that happens to everybody, from public company board members to folks just starting out. This is such a good question. The easiest and best way to do this is to get out of your own head. Go volunteer somewhere. Go help someone achieve something, whether it's packing food in boxes at a pantry, whether it is going to a homeless shelter, or it is going to, I don't know, a pet hospital. I don't care what it is. Get out of your own way and go do something for someone else who you don't know, or a large majority of people, but you definitely physically want to get out, right? Don't just do stuff online, and enable them. Yes. That feel-good factor, the same kind of sensors in our brains around losing hope, around, kind of feeling low energy and not happy. It's the same exact stuff that makes us excited and happy. So we're just choosing, right? Our brains are choosing how to interpret it. So the best way to get out of your own way is to take yourself out of the context that you are in. And then you start doing, and people, it's not very easy for me to hear Amy say all these wonderful things about me, because the thing is, I want to scream, but I know the truth. I have a bunch of laundry upstairs that needs to be folded, right? I don't have makeup on today. I barely made it to the classroom. Right? There are 101 things that I wish I could be better at that I'm probably going to kick myself for when we hang up, although it's a waste of time. But the point is, people have confidence in you, even when you don't have confidence in yourself. And when you're out there helping others, they believe you are helping them. That is the best way. Get out of your own head. And Deborah, thank you for asking that question. It's so important.
Absolutely. Deborah, that was amazing. I'm so glad you're a member of the classroom. You really, really are very important to the community. And I'm just scrolling through the comments looking for questions. We have people from Dubai, Pakistan, South Africa, United States, they're all over the world. So you are truly in a global classroom right now. And I'm going to put Fauzia, whoops. See, the questions are coming so quickly that I can't I can't follow them. Fauzia Zafran, I actually just met her this weekend online. She is in Pakistan, and she is her passion is teaching students entrepreneurship. So, Fauzia, your question is, Dr. Patti, can you tell me about the hardship of life that had given you a new lesson to learn? Because I think that we can learn from our hardships and mistakes.
Yeah, so I did share one earlier, but I'm going to share a different one now. And I love this question. And this is where Patti did not remember that her ego was not her amigo. So right after I finished my doctorate, and the dissertation was very groundbreaking. Nobody had kind of covered the stuff I did. I was full of myself and full of the topic, and truly believed that everybody else in the world of entrepreneurship in technology believed the same thing, that we had a big problem. We had no women, and boy, we're innovators and we care about innovation. You can't have innovation without diversity and inclusive practices. So one of the first things I did, armed with this new information, is I had facilitated a panel at a very, very large enterprise technology conference. And it was all techies in the room. There was not one woman in the audience, or maybe there was, but she was like in a marketing role. And so it was all these tech guys, and they were part of this community. The community really informs kind of who the speakers are and what the topics are. So it's a very tight community. So I'm up there and I have my panelists and I'm asking them questions. And as the hour goes by, I see more and more people are leaving and they're not coming back. And by the end of it, more than half the room was gone. And the people who were there kind of had their arms folded and they were very angry. And I could feel the panel like leaning away from me, right? And it was pretty crazy. And then over the course of the next week, I got hate blogs, I got death threats, I got all those things. And yeah, it was awful. And so what they felt was attacked. The men who were in the room felt blamed and shamed. And so what I realized from there was, I am not going to change anything if the people who are currently in charge of that system feel blamed and shamed. I had to engage them so I could enable them to see the data that I saw, so that they could see the opportunity I saw. And so a few weeks later, I licked my wounds, right? And I thought, how can I do this differently? I realized it wasn't about me. It was about the change, right? That was super important. So you've heard me talk about that. And I called them. I called some of the harshest ones who said very bad things to me. And now they are card-carrying feminists out there hiring women, working for women, right? But it really took that getting past myself. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have learned that lesson if I did not have the backlash. What I'm grateful for is it happened right out of the gate so that I could maximize those learnings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's such a great story. I mean,
Humbling.
to answer that question,
yeah.
I mean, that was it. You were right there. And I think that a lot of people who are watching this can actually relate, because a lot of people are, finding their courage to go out and suggest that something needs to be changed or to work on changing something. And that takes courage.
Yeah.
So for our viewers to hear that you've been right there, you've been in the mix, and the fact that your choice was to respond to these men, even if they were sending you hate mail and death threats, you still chose to respond with light, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can be a victim. And, I've played that card when I was younger on something else. Or you can react, which is never a good idea, or you can respond. And that's a great word to use, Amy, because that requires thought. It requires going, what happened? And this is the final thing around that, actually related to, like, what would I tell women? We women tend to internalize when something bad happens. If something, somebody says something mean to us, or the thing we tried to do didn't work, we tend to go, what did I do? It's all my fault, blah, blah, blah. That is very low emotional intelligence. Instead, what we need to learn is to neutralize, not internalize, using things like the ladder of inference, which you can download from my website if you go to my website, where you're able to take a step back and you're able to say, all right, what are the facts of the situation, right? Like, what happened? When did it happen? Who were the players? Don't ask why. Just look at the facts. Because remember, you're the one interpreting it with your brain, with all of those things that you have informed, right? Your biases. And that's what I learned. I had to neutralize. I don't always, right? I'm human. I fall. I make all the mistakes, so plenty of others don't have to. But it's just so totally important when you are creating change. You're going to disrupt somebody. You have to learn to neutralize so that you can continue to create the change and hopefully form some relationships, even with people who you might perceive as the enemy or who perceive you as the enemy.
Yes. And that, I think, is such a brilliant note to end on, because we don't have enemies. We have people who think differently. We have people whose perceptions, whose worldviews, whose cultures are just different from ours. So I put your last line up on screen: neutralize. Look at the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such an important piece of advice that you've shared.
Yeah.
So, Patti, any final word, or is that your final word that you'd like to say, and then we will sign off?
I just want to underscore something that you said, and that is, we can sit around and talk about this topic forever,
Mm-hmm.
or we can simply take the steps. What each one of us has a responsibility, not just to help ourselves, but to help the people around us. So the call to action, if I might, would be, I would like for each and every one of us to look for somebody who is in our network. And I'm not going to ask you to mentor them, because women don't need mentors. What we need are champions and advocates when we are not in the room. Who do you believe in, who you can go talk to someone else about today, and maybe create a new intro for them or have a new conversation with them? That is your call to action. It's all about the steps you take and seeing what works along the way.
Absolutely. And I'm going to kind of step out of my role as interviewer for a second, just because this is the way I met Patti. Women need each other. And Patti and I are both part of this. We just call ourselves the tribe. Mm-hmm. And the tribe gets together. We lift each other up. We help each other. And we are just a group of women, probably about 20 of us, who are all there to support each other, to troubleshoot, to lift each other up, and to be champions and advocates and help solve each other's problems. So I would add that to what Patti just said. And
a great add.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time. This has been a brilliant interview, and we pretty much got it done in an hour, even with all the technical problems. So there you go. We're adapters and we're disruptors, and we can still survive, even frozen Facebooks.
That's right. Even when technology doesn't want to enable us to do so. Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, Patti, and thank you everybody who's been watching and leaving comments. We'll check out the comments afterwards, I'm sure, and respond to some of those. So thank you. Please share this if you found it helpful. I have a feeling everybody found it helpful. And I will be back next week with another Rockstar entrepreneur interview with a gentleman who's actually teaching entrepreneurship and building schools to teach entrepreneurship. So you won't want to miss that. And I'll be back the Monday after that with yet another interview like this. So thank you. And thank you so much, Patti, for being here and being my first female rock star entrepreneur.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Happy Monday.